Peace. Quickly think fast. Uh, Caught the little vibe about like the New Testament and the Old Testament. Dealing with the Bible. Of course, remembering that the Bible is it's astrotheology, it's allegory. It's symbolic to the cosmology of the microcosm of our body and the macrocosm of the universe. Because again, the Son of God is also pointing to the actual Son. When we're talking about what they turn into Jesus, it's actually the Son, and there's also a representation of Christ's seed all within us. But with the New Testament, Old Testament, and remember, testament, root word testes, meaning testicles. My balls is my word. My Jimmy Bond or James Bond. They talk about James Bond. It's like your Jimmy Bond. And goes to Tubal Cain. Dealing with the Freemasonry, like the left father figure in essence. Tubal Cain, two balls and one cane, mean the testicles and the penis, and which also again James Bond, Jimmy Bond, 2 zeros, double O and a 7. It was almost like those two balls and that cane, And again, word is bond. And you go to Scarface. All I have in this world is my balls and my words. And then at one time, in church, that's why women wasn't allowed to, quote unquote, testify, because they didn't have any testicles to speak on, and which of course not. I'm saying this with these as if it was the right thing to do, but nah, of course not. But again, that was just the mind frame they had at that time, and more so too pushing the vibe of over masculinity, But the Old Testament is like our old self, and the New Testament is like that new self with the Christ consciousness embodied in it. Because I think about how, again, with religious people, like sometimes they indirectly be right to a certain extent, with what they do, in essence. Like, say for instance, like some Christians, are heavy, like the book of Matthew is the only way, the New Testament is the only way, and it's partially true to the aspect of, well, because what they point to now, of course, they looking at it from from an ignorant standpoint of not realizing that Jesus was a historical character. That Jesus was a created, like Christ existed, like they have 16 previous stories, and that this is about an energy, not about a historical character. But even with that, where they have the importance of the New Testament, Book of Matthew, but what the importance is about is just the Christ consciousness, embodying that Christ consciousness and embodying, that the soul ascension to transformation into that new self, the New Testament. The Old Testament is the old, Carl Ray, that used to drink 40s and deal Xanax again. And you look at the Old Testament where they still had a lot of those old laws and stuff like that, compared to the New Testament where it's more so focused on the Christ consciousness in essence, and the allegories of Christ, so just realizing, the aspect where, again, some religious people, the way they practice points to some truth, but they're just not practicing it in the fullness of the truth, you know what I'm saying? And again, the New Testament is, that new testimony, that new consciousness, that birth after the death of the old self, the death of the lower self, But that's a symbology for that aspect as well, and also, symbology of, again, the cosmology of our physical body, and then as above, so below. So, what goes on in our physical body goes on in the macrocosm externally, So again, all these different stories, the 7 different churches or the Temple of Solomon basically building up the body, you know what I'm saying? And you could look at building up this body the same as building up the earth, you know what I'm saying? Like it's correlating again to multiple aspects, but it's allegory. You know, I can't think of any names of videos right now, but I definitely got multiple videos tapping into this information. But just, you know, just a little quick one. I was on top of the dome. Matter of fact, I was listening to something, and it talked about how, matter of fact, let me get into this a little bit, you know, how our mind talk. Because I realized, you know, that I work on my subconscious better when I talk to myself out loud. You know, as crazy as it may seem to, you know, to be. Now, of course, you know, I'm not like just like everywhere I go, like talking to myself, you know, like that. But which I wouldn't care if the time called for me to talk to myself on that level, I will, you know what I'm saying? My spirit goes over the opinions and the perceptions of people externally looking at me, you know what I'm saying? Like, to hell with them. It's all about my connection. But, you know, I was listening to a video speaking on that, why self-talk, in essence, you know, in essence, like, determines the subconscious programming. And reason why I think about it, like, it is important, like, talking loud, because, like, say, for instance, where somebody might say something. I done brought this up before, where I'd be in a crowd of people, and they'd be like, oh, man, AIDS been killing everybody. You know, this and that. Like, with that, because, say, for instance, subconscious don't realize that that's somebody else talking. So, you know, subconscious see that as almost like being your own thoughts. And how I spoke on, like, well, when somebody do that, I would either say in my head, like, oh, no, that's fake, like, well, that's false. Or I just say it out loud to the person, like, you might want to speak for yourself. You know, like, that may be true for some people, but not my vortex, not my universe. You know, you got to say that, you know what I'm saying? Because if you sit there and your subconscious hearing that, oh, AIDS is killing people, this and that, and then you don't give no rebuttal mentally or, you know, externally, like saying like, oh no, then it, you know, your consciousness in essence is complying with it. You know, again, you gotta constantly be giving your subconscious proof, and that's proof. Like, well, every time you would hear something that's negating or that would bring you down, you will be speaking in a way of correcting it. You know, and that would be that constant proof to the subconscious. Like, well, oh no, you know, every time this energy come around, you know, like the conscious speaking on this. So basically, you know, like it gets into the routine of realizing like that when people, you know, come around saying certain things or whatever the case may be, you know, or you know, your own egoic mental noise, you know, go to acting up, you know, you correct it with that self-talk, you know what I'm saying? Like it's giving the subconscious evidence of, you know, trying to find a way to put it, because, you know, it's like evidence of the true information, I guess is the way to say it. Because again, like your mind or somebody could constantly be saying something that's hindering, but as you constantly correcting it, you know, whether you're saying again externally or internally, you know, that's helped giving your subconscious that proof, you know, or should I say more so like a repetition vibe with it as well. But, you know, it's like a proof of information in essence. But again, you know, that self-talk, matter of fact, so that self-talk helping us to get from that Old Testament to that New Testament, you know, from dealing with our old hindrances and lower nature, you know, stepping into higher vibration, you know, a state of consciousness and a state of being that helps for our soul ascension, I should say. Out here walking to the post office in the old Villa Del Rey, Baton Rouge. Shout out to Sherwood next door. Lil Webby. But bless. Just want to share that, you know, again, like the New Testament, Old Testament, and how again a lot of these religious aspects, you know, does have a certain level of truth to what they do or say. But, you know, it's almost like I always use the example of Bizarro Superman. You know,
Bizarro Superman, you know, or Bizarro, I think his name was, but it's like the, you know, like the how can I say? Because I'm about to say something, I'm like, that might, but which again, I gotta express it the best way, but he's just like a slower version of Superman. Let's just say it like that. And you know, and Bizarro might, you know, do some shit where his intention's good. Like Bizarro might go to save some people, but not realizing, like, say for instance, some people in a swimming pool trying to save somebody else, you know, or let's just say somebody in a lake trying to save somebody else, and Bizarro see it and he go to help, but then he pull out the people who trying to help the other person and leave the person that's drowning, because he like, oh, they must be bad because look at the water. You know what I'm saying? Like doing things where the intention is good, but because Bizarro, you know, isn't as intelligent as Superman, you know, he tend to, you know, do more harm than good when he goes to save people, you know what I'm saying? And Alan Watts spoke about that too. Shout out to Alan Watts, where he's like, no shit, we do more harm when we try to do stuff for others. He's like, you look at this country, you know, going to war for the sake of others, you know what I'm saying? It's like, shit, you know, it's just about our own growth at the end of the day. But that's basically it. Peace. Happy now. Now is the vibrate. Right now. Not too far in the future. Not too far in the past. Right now. Peace, peace.